Here are 15 of the best Ask Reddit stories for today. I hope you enjoy and remember to subscribe. It really helps us out. We post new videos every day.
Something boys can never tell their girlfriends. I actually watched this episode without you when you passed out last night. That you wouldn't date her if she was a worm. I just know this is going to be on a TikTok with Minecraft gameplay or Subway Surfers in the background with shitty lo-fi music. They'll put this comment in for the meta joke of it and use it to farm comments about how funny it was to put this one in there. Same with this one. How much I actually spend on my hobbies. The real answer to the question what are you thinking about when he dozed off again? What I'm really thinking about, since you would never believe me if I said I was thinking about how bike tires are made. I want my hoodie back. I need space from her sometimes, and it's not because she did something wrong. Calm down. The guy she tells us not to worry about really worries us.
The bad guy for not letting my brother and sister-in-law see my daughter after they threw away her medicine. I have a 4-year-old daughter, Emma. I am an alcoholic and I've been sober for 2 years. My brother was Emma's court-appointed guardian from when she was 15 months old to just before her 3rd birthday. I had to fight for almost a year to get her back. My brother and sister-in-law are still upset that I took Emma from them and have called CPS on me numerous times and make it clear that they don't trust me to take care of my own kid. They love Emma and Emma loves them, so I try to take her to see them a couple times a month. A couple weeks ago, Emma caught the stomach flu from someone at her preschool. I'm in school full-time and had a midterm that day, so I asked my brother to watch her for a couple hours so I could take my test. They said they were happy to take her, so I brought her to their house that morning with her medicines. A schedule saying when she's supposed to take which medicine and the dosage. A bottle of Pedialyte, and a few changes of clothes. I came to pick her up after the midterm and half her medicines, her clothes, and her Pedialyte were gone. When I asked about it, they said they threw away all of her medicines and the Pedialyte because they were liquids and they were already open, so I could have put something in there to make her sick or sleep. They also said I shouldn't be giving her Tylenol and Motrin, even though her doctor said it's fine. So they didn't buy her any Motrin. Then I asked about the nausea medicine, which is prescription, and they said they didn't think she needs prescription meds for the stomach flu. They also felt her clothes weren't good enough for her, so they gave it to their neighbor for their garage sale. I was freaking pissed, and what I did next got me disowned from my family.
It's a dead giveaway that someone has come from poverty. My dad never ate when Mom and I did. He'd sit at the table with us, but he always had stomach trouble that didn't seem to clear up until we had finished our meals. Then, if there was food left, he'd say, well, I guess I should try to eat something. If there wasn't anything left, he'd say that he just didn't feel like his stomach could handle anything. I didn't realize until I was an adult that he was waiting to be sure that my mom and I had enough to eat before feeding himself, and that he went to bed hungry on more than one occasion. It didn't occur to me what he was doing, because his mother, younger sister and younger brother confirmed that he'd done this since he was around 10. He went hungry as a kid, to make sure that they didn't. Nowadays, even the simplest meal at his house looks like a Thanksgiving feast for an army. But he always fills his plate last and never takes a second helping until everyone else has finished.
Am I the bad guy for refusing to give my parents money? I'm a 19-year-old woman with 6 older siblings. My parents spent most of my childhood spending money they didn't have on my siblings. So by the time I hit my teenage years, I realized I was probably going to have to fend for myself financially when I turned 18. I started babysitting and doing odd jobs around my neighborhood when I was 14. And eventually got part-time jobs during the school year. By the time I was 16, I was working 3 jobs in the summer and 2 in addition to school. When my parents told me they couldn't pay for college, I'd already earned enough to be able to put myself through college and have plenty left over. I've continued to work during the school year and have been able to make money during quarantine by tutoring online. The issue began a few months ago when my eldest sister got married. My parents spent 30 grand on her wedding, taking out a second mortgage to do so. To make matters worse, my dad was furloughed 6 days after the wedding. They'd effectively dug themselves into a hole they couldn't get out of. 2 weeks ago, my mom texted me for the first time since the wedding. She didn't say hi, ask how I was, or make any small talk. She just said, "Your dad and I need a favor. When can we call you?" I'd expected this. None of my elder siblings are doing well financially, and they've exhausted all other loan options, both from family and the bank. I figured they would text me, ask me to loan them a few thousand, and promise to pay it back when they could figure things out. I was absolutely willing to pitch in a few thousand, but what they did next made me disown them for good.
What are some unethical life hacks? Find a partner who is a heavy sleeper. Each night after they go to sleep, slap a nicotine patch on them. Take it off before they wake up. They will become addicted to nicotine, and should they break up with you, go through massive withdrawals. If everything has gone to plan, they will associate this shitty feeling with their newfound freedom and come back to you. At the theater, Just pour some soda on the seat in front to make sure your view is clear. You can report YouTube videos for violating community guideline strikes and keep all of their ad revenue. I usually get people for copyrighted music. I once got Markiplier's YouTube video and make close to $9,000. I got the job through YouTubejobs.net. But it's kinda hard to apply though, there is only a few hundred spots per month. When I go camping I bring a friend that I know can outrun me. Just cause. I always pick rock and rock paper scissors against my sister or in front of my sister. I end up doing dishes more. But the odd time I really need something I pick scissors. She's always going on about how I'm so dumb for always picking rock, but I know what's up. If your child is diagnosed with autism or cancer, save hundreds of thousands of dollars by instantly putting them up for adoption. What TV show was amazing at first but became unwatchable for you later on? The Walking Dead. Not the worst offender, but that 70s show tanked pretty hard once Eric left. He was sorely needed to make the chemistry of the group work. Arrow. It's what happens when you try to make so many seasons for a show meant for only a few. The Flash on CW. Suits. Loved the premise and first couple of seasons, but later it turned into just stupid drama between the characters and less about actual awe. Dexter was great but peaked at the end of season 4. Could not stand the last 2 seasons. Game of Thrones. I was enamored with it for the first 5 seasons. 6 only reinforced my love, but I remember some cracks starting to show. 7 went downhill super fast and I refused to sully my memories with 8. House of Cards. Grey's Anatomy 100%. The show was great, but I just can't keep up with all the twists and turns and freaky accidents anymore. It's also a lot less funny. It should have ended seasons ago. Breaking Bad. It was great for the first several full rewatches, unwatchable after I lost my phone and my computer and TV broke.
I think I've destroyed my marriage. My wife refuses to see me or speak to me. I'm not even allowed to know where she is. I don't know if this goes here or not, but I made a friend, let's call him David, at the gym. We got on well and the friendship started to translate outside of just being gym buddies. We regularly hung out after work or after the gym and it was nice having a friend I could spend time with. Almost 3 weeks ago I invited him over to my house to have dinner with me and my wife. My wife and I cooked dinner and at some point her sister-in-law called asking if her 3-year-old son left his alligator socks at our house as he refuses to breathe until he gets it back, and he did leave it at ours. So my wife decided to drop it off. While my wife was away David arrived. All was going well until my wife got back home and saw David. She just suddenly started screaming, and I mean she was letting out some blood-curdling screams. She was just shouting for David to get out and waving a blade around. David left and I tried to ask her what happened, but she honestly couldn't talk as it seems like she was having a stroke or a heart attack. So I called for an ambulance and she was admitted at the hospital for having a severe panic attack. She was hospitalized for 3 days and she did not speak the entire time to literally anyone. On her release date she just left and no one would tell me where she was. I've called everyone we know and no one will speak to me or tell me where she is. Then finally her sister texted me a long text that was full of expletives, but it did explain what I did wrong. David was the man who took her hostage for 9 days when she was 12 and then stalked her for 7 years until he went to prison for another crime. He was never punished for SA or for holding her hostage. I mean, my jaw fell to the ground. I knew all about this as she had told me about it from the beginning. I just don't know how I didn't recognize him. I don't know how to fix this. She just refuses to see me, speak to me, and I don't even know where she is now.
It's something you shouldn't give to a homeless person. We used to check in on this homeless man occasionally to make sure he was doing okay. One year we were chatting and he says, "Hey, I have to give you something." I was excited, thinking maybe he's super artsy and made us something cool to remember him by. He opens his trench coat and reveals a giant frozen uncooked slab of pork. Someone gave me this f***ing slab of meat. What the fuck does he think I'm going to do with this? I'm sick of carrying this around. Years ago, I was nipping to my local supermarket and there was a homeless dude with a cute dog curled up next to him. Mindful that any money I gave him may be spent unwisely, I said I'd get his pup or some food. At which he responded, "Oh, for fuck's sake, can you not?" Astonished, I was about to have a fucking meltdown on his ass, but he held up a finger and pulled a bag round from behind him. It was rammed with tins of dog food, clearly from other well-meaning shoppers. Closing the bag back up, he sighed heavily and exclaimed, "For the love of God, can you just buy me a fucking tin opener?" I was homeless and a guy threw a pack of razor blades in my lap and said do the world a favor, so I did. I used them to shave to help me find work. A month later I was in a caravan with a job to go to. 6 months later I had a car. Now I live in an apartment complex and have a full-time job.
I'm being accused of sexual assault by the person who sexually assaulted me. Basically, friend came over, got way too drunk, begged me to send her BF dirty voice messages after repeatedly telling her I was uncomfortable, then she invited him over, begged me to do things with them, etc. You know, I spoke out about it, so she couldn't attempt to hurt anyone else. And now my whole city thinks I'm a rapist because she twisted the story and accused me of sexually assaulting her when I didn't touch her in the slightest. I'm engaged for 1 for 2, wasn't attracted to her. People who I thought were my friends, whom I vented to about the situation before she posted publicly on Facebook that I was a predator, are all blocking me, believing her story. It's not fair that I have to experience not only the trauma of someone I thought I could trust taking advantage of me but now being the one accused as well. I'm literally drinking every night to keep my mind off of it. I can't leave the house, I'm afraid, I'm just passively killing myself, I don't know what to do, or how to handle this. I have video proof and everything that she was the perpetrator that night and still I'm being blamed for my own assault. I truly cannot handle this, as everything else in my life is completely crumbling.
I'd be the bad guy if I sued my boyfriend's elderly mother and pressed charges against her. Okay, I know how this sounds. Please hear me out at least. I've been with my boyfriend for 11 years, since I was 15. His mother has hated me since the first day she met me. She hated me due to my ethnicity. She hated me due to my career. I work as a model and she decided that makes me an empty-headed, vain, shallow person. Then when I told her I still planned to go to university alongside my career, she said I was doing it to impress my boyfriend. I have since left university with a distinction, and her new reason to hate me is, I try too hard. She has also insisted I've cheated on him throughout our entire relationship, which is a ridiculous claim. I've never even kissed another man in my whole life. I have zero desire to cheat and never will. Late last year she attempted to void the insurance on my boyfriend's motorbikes. She tried to do this under my name so, hypothetically, when he was arrested for riding with no insurance and called his insurance company, I'd get the blame. After this happened, my boyfriend and I agreed to cut her out, however it hasn't stuck. She left my boyfriend alone and respected his wishes for no contact, but she's continued to contact and harass me. This leads to the last few weeks. My boyfriend works as a motorcycle test rider and he got in an awful motorbike crash while working. As such, I now need to care for him. But then on Friday night we got a knock on our door. It was the police, and what they did next made me want to sue my boyfriend's mother.
Instantly makes a girl hot. I started dating a girl who would dress in fancy clothes and seemed a little uptight. When I took her home one night, her dad met up with us with their golden retriever. The dog got really happy and started bouncing and it got dirt all over the girl's fancy clothes. The girl just laughed and started playing with the dog. That made her very attractive. Just being herself and not caring about little stuff. Sounds like a fake answer, but really showing genuine interest is just about the hottest thing you can do. We want to feel wanted. Went out on a date with a woman. We got drunk and came back to mine for a nightcap and she saw my chess set. She coyly asked to play a game, where she proceeded to destroy me. Sexy as fuck. A sense of humor. I used to be a waiter and I was serving a girl and her mom. This girl was kind of pretty but not really my type. By the end of me waiting on her, from all her jokes and everything, I thought she was insanely attractive. Then she mentioned her boyfriend.
Officers of Reddit. What criminal actually impressed you with their criminal skills? Once had a guy who shoplifted on an industrial scale. He stole hundreds and sometimes thousands of pounds worth of merchandise from a particular well-known high street clothing store. Every day. He'd go to different branches all over the country, UK obviously. He spoke nicely and was smartly dressed. He just used to fill up bags with high-value products and walk out. He had a warehouse-type unit somewhere. Police never found it with his own till, because he would generate till receipts for these items and go back to return them at a different branch and get cash refunds. He was at it for years, made enough to put his kids through private school. When he got caught he was jailed for about a year. Our shoplifting sentencing guidelines are absurdly low. When he came out he got back on it. Police still couldn't find his base. He was being investigated and was on bail. One occasion when he answered his bail at the police station, the police had a 6-man surveillance team ready to tail him and track down the warehouse he was using. He'd lost them within 2 minutes of leaving the station.
When you think of a profession, which one is scariest if they suddenly said, oops. First time I went skydiving, 18 years old with friends on a Hawaii senior graduation trip. I get strapped to this old, crazy guy. All the younger dudes were fighting strapping up to the women all while being creeps. He was 100% no fucks given. Once the chute was pulled, he said, do you like spinning? And then pulled onto the cords and we spun out almost horizontal for a bit. Then he reversed direction with the other cord. It was great. And then he said, well, shit. Why? What's wrong? Apparently usually people scream when he spins them so he stops. I was having a great time. And apparently we lost way more altitude than he planned. He tells me to start scouting potential landing spots over this neighborhood. He's not sure we'll make it back to the runway. We actually hold high enough that we're coming in toward the very end of the runway, at the fence around it, and he says, lift your legs as high as you can, be prepared to kinda kick off and over the fence, we're pretty low. And then get ready, because I'm gonna pop you loose the moment we're over the fence. Try to land on your feet, and run as fast as you can forward. I'm gonna have to sprint to get this chute over the fence so it doesn't snag. Sure enough, kick off the fence and then suddenly I just drop the 6-ish feet to the ground, stumbling. I run for a bit, look back, and he's right behind me, manage to get the parachute over the fence. We then get to walk down the whole runway back to the office. My friends are waiting around and super confused by the time
People who came close to dying. What were your last thoughts? I was stabbed in the neck by someone robbing my house. I totally thought I was going to die. I hate myself, but I begged the guy who stabbed me to stay because I didn't want to die alone. He said sorry and walked away. That effing broke my heart. Thankfully he called 911 for me. I was in a fight and I didn't know I was stabbed in the liver and the lung. I walked away with my friend and collapsed in an alley. I remember bleeding out with calming waves of euphoria washing over me and I thought, I've lived enough. I'm okay with this. I blacked out and woke up in the back of an ambulance with waves of immense pain assaulting my body. Dying isn't awful. Surviving is awful. I thought I was having a DRG overdose. I just remember thinking how disappointed my mom was going to be with me. Was run over by a bus last year. My thought when I went under the tires was, but it's a Wednesday. I pictured my husband coming home to an empty house and I desperately hoped people would reach out and make sure he was okay. Couldn't stand the thought of him being alone. What's the worst thing you did as a horny teen? So I was tech school fresh off the bus from basic training. I was 18 so still in teens. Was assigned casuals grounds cleaning detail until my classes started. I was talking to this girl while we were raking around one of the dorms. The conversation turns dirty, and before I know it I'm copping feels on her arse and her thigh quickly here and there. Which she in turn is telling me is turning her on. Up until now I've been careful, as we are fully outside in plain view. I've been making sure no one has been looking as I do these things, and then it happens. She bends over and I see my chance and I run my hand up between her legs when she's bent over and she giggles. All of a sudden I hear a loud "what the frick?" I turn around and my blood runs cold as there is a higher ranking airman just staring at me incredulously. He then turns to the girl I've been fooling around with and asks her if she wants him to report me to the sergeants. I feel like I'm going to black out from fear and then she tells him no, I got a handle on. And he looks at me and then her and says, "Are you sure?" She nods and then he walks off, and then I proceed to have a panic attack. What's the fastest you've seen a new co-worker get fired? First day of work, he walks in, says "what the fuck is up dumbass" to the guy that parked next to, didn't touch, his new Camaro he bought since he got hired. The guy was the CEO of the company I used to work for, on visit to our branch. Literally 10 minutes into his shift he was signing release papers. Worked in a grocery store for a while. New guy took a lobster out of the tank and removed the elastic bands on its claws, then proceeded to put it back in the tank. The thing murdered all the other lobsters in the tank. During their onboarding training, they stole my boss's wallet on camera. 1 hour in,